Welcome to the Athletic Performance Podcast, a conversation for all things performance related. I'm your host, Ryan Patrick, and today we're going to do a deep dive on everything speed, power, and strength. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today's guest is Kris Freeman. Kris is a staff coach at Barbell Logic Online Coaching, or BLOC, and a personal trainer in Versailles, Kentucky. But I know Kris from my early days as an up-and-coming strength coach. I watched his evolution from CrossFit into kettlebells and now into his more holistic approach to health and fitness, which serves many of the clients he works with. If you're curious about the practical implementation of recovery modalities, I'm talking cold exposure, hot exposure, red spectrum light, and even grounding, Kris gives a crash course in today's podcast. This will give you an idea of how to practically implement any or all of these therapies into your life. We also talk about his training philosophy and some of the influences he's had over recent years, including the implementation of the often controversial ATG method. Kris is a down-to-earth guy and one of the more competent strength coaches I've worked alongside, and it was a great conversation to catch up and learn more about what he's doing these days. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation and dig into how other strength coaches are constantly living, learning, and leading a high-performance lifestyle. Yeah.
I've got a case the camera normally sits in to keep it, insulated from overheating, but then the audio I don't think would be very clear for me. So
yeah. That was my first thought. I'm like, I bet he was on his phone and it overheated in the sauna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I baked it, dude. So I apologize.
It's all good, man.
Anyway, so you're training athletes now. I'm training the older population.
Yep.
As I like to say, the masters athletes, and doing the homeschool thing with the kids. A couple days, stacking clients up Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We keep our weekends for family time, and we're going to be traveling a little bit this fall during our fall break, period and stuff, which is really on us because we run the schedule and stuff, and our fall break can be whenever we like it. So we're gonna be taking a trip a little earlier this year. So
that's cool. Where are you guys gonna go?
We're gonna go to Inlet Beach down in Florida, like that 30A area.
Oh yeah, it's so nice down there.
Yeah, it'll be a little less crowded too because we'll be able to go a couple weeks before fall break proper happens down there. And then as of June, I'm a staff coach at Barbell Logic Online Coaching. So as we call it, BLOC, BLOC. Matt Reynolds is the CEO for that company, and I've known about him for a while. I met him down in Texas back in 2016 at Ripeto's Gym, Wichita Falls Athletic Club.
Yeah.
And he's a good guy to work for. They have a great crew. I can't remember how many coaches are on their staff now, but they just landed another military contract. So they're making some big moves in the online training space, man. It's a neat system that they've got going. So
yes. So what's your primary role going to be there? Like, how do they conduct their online coaching?
So basically what they've done is they have an app and a system called Turnkey Coach that makes your job it consolidates everything. So like if you just look at the amount of clicks that you do to reach out to a client, or the amount of buttons you have to push, for programming to slide things around, they've made it really, they make it very time efficient from a programming standpoint. They make it very user friendly for the coach, but also for the client being coached. The experience is just much better than any platform I've used, True Coach and Trainer Eyes, and I've tried a couple other things. This is not the first time I've done online coaching. I've been doing it off and on since 2015.
Yeah.
With the video feedback and the way you can look at somebody's videos and coach them rep to rep, virtually without being on a damn Zoom call. This is after the fact videos they've uploaded. It's just not feasible, man. We can't do that. This isn't 2020 where we're out of our conventional roles. We're busy, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as being able to train more clients in different locations than I would normally be able to train, or have people see me infrequently in person, but then they couple that with they've got to be getting in the gym 2 or 3 times a week on the regular. They can't just see me once a week or once a month and call it good. It just, it's got to be more than that. So it's a good way to leverage your time and be able to reach more people with your time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been pretty underwhelmed by most of the online coaching platforms. I think they're all great in their own way, but
Yep.
the time required to just get a singular system up to speed is just agonizing in
Yep.
terms of how long it actually takes to get to a program. And then if I want to modify things post hoc, it's always just been super difficult. So I'm glad you found something that works for you. But I tell you what would be a good kind of jumping in point, because I've called on you many times for kettlebell training. I mean, you were my kettlebell guy for a long time before Ben was working with us. And
Yep.
then, I'm just curious, like these days, what are like some of the big rocks in your training? I mean, it doesn't have to be with just the older population you work with, but just across the board, like how's your training evolved in the last, say, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, quite a bit, really. Like you talked about with your SI joint issue, like those things shape and mold us. They give us maybe some biases, in our training philosophy, or they lead that we'd otherwise not go. And when I got, with barbells for a number of years, at one point in time, I got into CrossFit. Kettlebells have been a consistent staple in my training because I just enjoy using them as a training tool, and they're just very approachable for other people. They're not as intimidating as a barbell. So barbells are still a staple. The
Mm-hmm.
kettlebells I really liked to get people to move better. For some reason, people, when they have a barbell in their hands, especially if that's not why they come to see you, I'm a professional barbell coach, by the way, through BLOC. And
Mm-hmm.
some people come to see me like through them to learn the big four, the big five lifts, squat, bench press, deadlift, power clean, etc. But my Gen Pod clients maybe don't really care about that as much. So if
Right.
it's about getting them to move better, like right now with what they have, kettlebell is always a great tool. A few years back, I got really into the stuff from Athletic Truth Group, Ben
Yep.
Patrick's project, Keegan Smith's project. They're very Charles Poliquin influenced heavily. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of lateral training. There's a lot of training the spine under non-compressive load training. But what drew me in the most was the whole idea of expressing strength through length. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, a great idea. I'd never done anything like that. So it changed my thinking about stretching and mobility from something that was a pain in my ass that I was just shitty at to something that this is strength expressed in a different way. It's truly
Mm-hmm.
like you're strengthening a end range position and is no longer stretching or mobility. It's just another form of strength training. And when I started thinking about it like that, I was like, damn, I was more bought in. And as you know, when you're bought in, you get better results. So I
Yep.
started hitting those ATG split squats. I started hitting the full stretch RDLs, getting my knuckles past my toes, with 225. So although the weights are not impressive, but the movement is what's really killer, and how you feel during your workouts, it makes you want to continue to work harder because it feels so damn good, like on your shoulders, on your hips, and on your low back. And then you're less inhibited when you do your sports practice, or what
Mm-hmm.
have you, where you do your dad life stuff, or whatever you got going on. And I've had a lot of people tell me since I started doing jujitsu last year. It's been like exactly a year, so I'm brand new to the sport. My skill level is way down here. Everything is still just, it's not overwhelming exactly, but it's still like a lot to take in, as you remember, because you've been doing it as well.
Yeah.
But I've had so many people tell me, like, dude, when you get an iota skill, your strength level is crazy. But it's not that my strength level is crazy, Ryan, because it's been a lot better, like
Yeah.
numbers. It's the positions that I can manage, and when my shoulder can crank, and it doesn't feel like it's going to snap, it gives me a lot more movement options, and I can be stronger in what would seemingly be vulnerable positions. Where my fucking legs are flipped over my head. Normally that wouldn't go, and like I have more options there, so it seems like I'm more powerful than I am. It also helps to be about 215, 220, because the sport is, lighter guys can excel at it, but it is nice to be able to smash people.
Still, Still meathead at heart, man.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I do like how a lot of different practices have informed your philosophy. I think that's really important for any coach,
Hmm.
and I'm super happy to hear the way you're talking about ATG because they obviously receive a lot of criticism and a lot of praise. They're one of those organizations that I think has done a good job of creating polarity of people who are all in or all out. And uh, you've talked more about some of the nuance of strength through length and actually incorporating this into your practice and not just, hey, we're going to spam backward sled walks and tip raises. Like we're going to find some of the utility in this in terms of what the relationship of that is with some of the things you've done in the past. So I think that's super useful. But I will touch on jujitsu because I'm a practitioner
Hmm.
and I think that's a good avenue. But one of the most interesting things that I found doing this was getting a lot of the movement and the rolling, not rolling in jujitsu of me and another guy, but literally just rolling on the ground and moving my body in new ways really did wonders for just opening up my just what I felt like was my physical capacity, the space I could occupy, and talk about being able to turn your shoulder. Week one, I was getting Kimura, like if it went into like even 5 degrees of internal rotation, you know what I mean? So that's been hugely influential in terms of how I've thought about just balancing strength and squeezing the muscles in my program, especially for my athletes, and getting the other side of just allowing them to access this over a greater capacity, if that's making sense.
Yeah. It's great, man. It's a neat sport, especially gi. I'm learning that's more of a little bit of a slower game, compared to no gi. And
Yeah.
no gi competition in July, and it was fun. Now we're back to doing more work in the gi and stuff. Our school kind of switches that seasonally, although we're more heavily biased to work in the gi, and it was
Yeah.
somewhat frustrating because I felt like I could actually do better in no gi. It was more like wrestling, so you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of slide out of positions. And then one of the more advanced purple belts, he sent me a video, and it was it was inspiring because it was uh, basically pointing me in the direction like your technique will have to be better in a gi because it has to be executed slower. You can't slide through positions. You have to be able to own every position. So there's reasons why it'll actually make you a better practitioner to do some work, in the gi. Besides, the variability in what you can do with lapels and your grips are, way different, more aggressive. So it's been a neat sport, man. It was weird being smashed by people and having that pressure, being put in uncomfortable positions and having to get like, comfortable with being uncomfortable and a whole different like set of rules, a whole set of tools. Be a brand new guy with all these guys around me that can kick my ass, or girls that can kick my ass that are, much smaller than me. So
Mm-hmm.
it was nice to be. I always enjoy being in the learning seat, man, like as you probably do as well, because that's how we
Yeah.
grow. But it was so refreshing being in a sport I'd never done before. Um, something I'm kind of built for. I've got long legs. I've got a short or average sized torso. I've got a big ass back. So I'm not like the best power lifter. That build did not suit me. I'm not like the fastest runner, but I can move pretty
Mm-hmm.
well on the ground. Because there's uh, a lot of things that help me back physically are now I've worked through them after about 16, 17 years of hard work, and it's not there's certain things it's not limiting. And the groundwork, like you said, when's the last time that I spent 90 minutes on the ground 3 times a week? Like never. So now getting down with my kids is easier. I'm more comfortable. Like my hips are more mobile and open. I can sit on my heels. Like I can remember when you're like in that they're like posture up when you're in close guard. I was like, dude, I
Mm-hmm.
can't touch my feet. It's like 6 inches, because I'm so tight and stiff.
Mm-hmm.
And now just after being on the mats for a few minutes, like I can sit down and I can plantar flex my ankles all the way now, and my hips move way better. It's a very demanding sport on the hips, and my hips are still tighter than shit, and it definitely holds me back. So I continue to work on that.
Yeah. I remember when I started, like it was almost good to have somebody your size, like 215. Like if I were on my side somehow, and and they were just putting pressure on my hip. I'm like, oh, this feels good. But then they would start smashing my face, and I'm like, oh, this is not good again. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like, just, you ever, you guys put the sandbags and stuff on the side of the hips to kind of open it up. Like, that's almost what it felt like at first. I'm like, oh, this feels great. I'm like, you just stay here another 30 seconds and I might be able to swing my leg out of this position.
Yep.
But man, 90 minutes, 3 times a week, like that's a pretty intense schedule. Like your scale's probably coming up super fast. You say you've been doing it about a year?
Yeah, and it's kind of between 2 times a week. Ideally it's like 3 times a week. This week it'll be twice, but when I can get to open mats on Saturday, man,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, and that's a lot of rolls. So going into the competition, I didn't feel like conditioning was a factor like at all. I felt very well prepared. It was just
Yeah.
stripe white belts, and then me with one stripe, and I got my ass kicked, pretty good. But I knew that going in that the skill level was going to be quite different. And
Right.
one of my favorite matches, this 16-year-old cat from Core Combat Sports in Louisville. I didn't know he was 16, but he gets in there. And then we do the bump. I was like, damn, this kid doesn't have much facial hair. Like, he looks pretty young. I was thinking maybe he was like, in his 20s. And he's 16. He's been doing it for 10 years and ran adult for 2 years, right? So he's a four-stripe white belt, going on blue belt like any day. And
Mm-hmm.
a pretty sick reverse armbar. But it was a good scrappy match. It was a lot of fun for me just to be able to compete. I didn't get hurt. Here's a guy. I'm almost, I'm 38. I'll be 39 soon, and I had to go down a weight class because I weighed in really light, and
Yeah.
so wrestling and rolling with guys that were like 16, like 30 years old. The oldest guy was 30, so I had some age on him, and injuries as well. So I still held my own. And didn't get, so it was a victory there.
So much fun, man. I'm proud of you for just getting out there and competing at something, being uncomfortable. You learn a lot in the gym going against higher belts, but there's something about the intensity of competition, the adrenaline dump,
Oh
knowing that it matters, if you want to move and progress round to round. Like it just really exposes a lot of the flaws in your game, which are pretty immense at white belt and blue
yeah,
belt. But I don't know, man. It's just, I think it's incredible the guys that get out there and do that because, I mean, you do risk injury. Like we run families and it requires a pretty intense schedule of training to focus and get to that level. It is
yeah,
a day away on a weekend when it could be family time. So like, to be mindful of all those stuff and balance it and challenge yourself like that, I still think is great because so many guys our age, I think we're a couple months apart, man. I turned 39 at the end of this year.
yeah,
Um, it just, for lack of better terms, just kind of mailed it in physically.
yeah. Yeah, man, I think it's important, especially when you're raising kids, kind of stuff that you do for and stuff that has a greater purpose. You got to have hobbies and interests. If you're just coming home and just clicking on the TV and that's the only thing you got going on outside of work, which I know a lot of dads like that. It's fucking sad. It's sad for you. It's sad for your family. And I don't know. I can't imagine living that life. I've got a patch from a buddy of mine he does hats, he does patches, he does a bunch of stuff with a laser machine that says, "See you." What is it? It's the Grim Reaper. It says, "I'll be seeing you." Right? And I see that patch. It's right on my computer screen. So when I'm doing stuff that's more seemingly unfun, like say it's taxes or whatever, or it's it's maybe it's check-ins and it's on the weekend, or it's programming that's taking me like 2 hours. I'm
Mm-hmm.
reminded every time I see that patch, like this, you get to do what you're doing right now is still a privilege, even though you can consider it work. And there's so many things that I get to do where it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Uh, our days are limited, man, and it's coming for all of us, and you better get after it while you're here.
Yeah. We've got some illness in the family right now, some cancer, and it's
Sorry to
always
hear that.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's certainly a challenge for us, and it's on my wife's side. So, a lot of my role is just, I think, supporting her right now, but it always causes you to step back and just evaluate everything that's going on and thinking about really what's important and what's consuming attention and energy and even frustration that maybe it's just irrelevant into the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
So yeah, and in some respects, I'm thankful for that reminder. Obviously, we don't want to be going through this, but also don't want to mindlessly arrive at the end of my life and be like, well, I really fucked up.
Yeah. Regrets, man, that's something that I don't want to have. It tried and failed is fine, but regrets about doing or not doing are something that I don't want any part of.
No, I totally get that. Kind of on this note, I mean, I want to dive in. This is obviously we had to start re-recording this because we were in the sauna. The phone overheated, which
Yeah.
is amazing. But you're clearly into optimizing your lifestyle. And a lot of that, from what I've seen, is the saunas, the cold tubs. Talk to me about just what initially caught your attention with this and some of the strategies and things that you've implemented on a day-to-day basis. Because I am super curious about all of it. I know a little bit, maybe you've listened to a Huberman podcast, but I want to know just from like a practical standpoint, like what got you here and how are you using it?
Yeah. So like the nerds call it biohacking. I hate that term. I call it, lifestyle management. We're thrown into this mix that we're from an evolutionary standpoint to endure for a whole lifetime. The indoor living, the poor quality of food, to our, lack of being able to rest and have slow time for our brain, have boredom, periods where we're not doing a lot, periods where we're eating more, eating less. Like there's these natural rhythms to life that it makes us, when you're trying to track your fucking macros and you're worrying about every calorie, but you're not worrying about the micronutrients, where your food comes from, what's been sprayed on it, what it's been fed, like the health of the animal. That stuff is so much more important than numbers. But like, we're not designed to think about numbers like that. It is so overly complicated. So I would summarize it as like, we're just trying to introduce things that our body should be exposed to try to combat the modern day lifestyle, causing us these poor health outcomes. So for us, it's like, we're turning, it could be, we'll just start with some of the hot and cold stuff is basically like we're trying to trigger, a hot or cold shock proteins so that our mitochondria and our cells are more optimized, for work. It's basically, springing everything back into uh, firing as much as it can. And this stuff, man, I don't know this on like a chemistry level. I know how to apply these ideas, right? So it could be as simple as a cold shower, in the morning to help wake you up. It could be, getting morning sun. Like just take your coffee outside for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. Or get up, 5 or 10 minutes earlier. Take your family on a walk after dinner, see the sunset. Things that are that simple, like with our kids, they were both great sleepers, but coincidentally, we also did morning sun and evening sun exposure every day when they were developing their sleep patterns. Every day. So it was intentional, and we didn't worry about even with our first, we didn't worry about the sunburn because we're talking about small time, and it's not like heavy UV exposure like a solar noon type situation. But we understood like that that light rhythms affect your circadian rhythms, your sleep cycles, melatonin production, all that stuff. So yeah, the cold, blue light, the blocking of the blue lights, is a very in vogue, popular thing right now. And so I've been doing the blue blocking classes probably for 5 or 6 years. About 4 years ago, we got medical grade red light from Tech. It kicks ass. Just helps your cells literally produce more ATP for energy. So if you do it, anytime you do it, the further away, the longer exposure it takes, the closer it is to your skin. It can actually penetrate, I believe it's 3 or 4 like centimeters deep in your skin, or maybe it's 3 or 4 millimeters. Don't quote me on that, but it'll actually use if you're close enough to the red light. So when we have stuff that needs to heal faster, we put it in front of that. We use this to light a room at night. My son's got some scrapes and stuff right now, so I'll put those right up next to it. you heal faster for sure. And if you put it next to your brain, I'll do breath work and stuff, like some Wim Hof breath work in the morning or in the evening, and I'll put that thing like 6 inches away from my brain. And in the morning, it'll, it'll wake me up, and I've got better focus and energy without even having a cup of coffee, just doing that first. Breath work helps as well. But yeah, we're into that stuff, and we try to expose our clients to it. So because we run a business from the home, they can use our ice bath. They can use the sauna. That's like a separate service. But if I had the perfect client, they would come. They would cold plunge. They would lift their weights. If they have time, they could do a sauna afterwards, or they could just drop by and do that another time if they wanted to. But I'll tell people to get hot 2 to 3 times a week. There's some really good numbers on if you can do it 3 or 4 times a week. And with the deliberate cold exposure, if you can do that 11, 12 minutes total a week, that's really all that you need. You could do more if you were just, really into it, but that's not a lot. That's like, 3-4 minute sessions. That's not
Okay. So let's start with the red lights. I'm really curious about that. I've seen a lot of people doing it. They take some funny pictures, right? Like this is me waking up and their hair is like, they got the red light on their face.
Yeah.
So a couple just real basic questions from a pragmatic standpoint. How far away are you usually keeping it from your skin? I know you mentioned a couple inches. Does it vary based on your intention? How long are the applications, and how much per week would you use something like that?
Yeah, you can use it often. If you want a more concentrated dose, obviously, if you're getting inches away, that's still a very safe space, but it's going to be faster acting, like on a specific spot. Like, I used to use it for my lower back, and I'd be about 6 inches away. If you're within a foot of the thing, and because ours is about this tall, that's casting a big spectrum of infrared light waves. So if you're within a foot of the thing, it's pretty darn close and concentrated. You may only need 5 to 7 minutes when you're that close up for an area, to be affected. Further, like 2 feet or more, you might need 20 or 30 minutes on an area. So that's kind of where I'll put it if I'm doing breath work, putting my head in a little bit closer. But just having the thing on, if you're not getting a ton of UV exposure, it's better than not getting sun. So, and it's great to light your house in the evenings. Ours has a lower power setting, so that you don't like inadvertently trigger, a little bit of excitement, or anything like that in your system. So it's got like a lower bulb setting for the evening. It's a good light for your room. That's another thing that we're big on here. Is we're big on after 7, 8 o'clock, the lights in the house go off. And I've yelled at my kids before for turning the lights on in the bathroom while they're brushing their teeth, because it's like all you need is a few seconds of that blue light exposure to kind of disrupt your brain and your melatonin production. So, candlelight dinners, we need to get back to doing that. But we were doing that for a while, and it seemed like everybody was a lot more relaxed. You know how sometimes having little kids at the dinner table is not always the most relaxing experience. They don't want to eat you cooked, or maybe they're just wanting to move around, they don't want to sit down. So it kind of makes that for the better. So we need to get back to that.
That's incredible. I love it because it's countercultural for sure, right? This is not the norm. Like, I don't know, probably another person who's having candlelight dinners or thinking about this stuff, but I can affirm that when maybe we lose the electricity or something happens where things do start to slow down, maybe the Wi-Fi connection goes out and all of a sudden the TVs are off, and then we just kind of dim the lights. The mood tends to change, right? They even use this at restaurants. Like they dim the lights and it gets quieter. It's just everywhere you look, there's just an opportunity for excitement and just going. And one of the things, we're not as strict about the lights, but I do try to get my kids off screens before a certain time, because it disrupts their sleeps. They get hyper at night when it's bedtime. Things just seem to really unravel, and I'm like, why is this every night? So, I mean, I don't know if we're going to go as far as you, Kris. I'm going to be transparent about that, because I think with our schedule, we tend to roll in pretty late anyway. But I definitely want to make a conscious effort to move towards some of this stuff. And the red light therapies just got me so intrigued. Like it's something I've kind of just at a distance looked at for a while, but I don't know, maybe we'll have to move forward with it at some time.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice having, a portable device, and then smaller ones too, Ryan. So they don't have to be like the largest, most expensive products. I will say that, the company and the quality, do some digging if you want to get one. Do your homework, because some of them are high flicker, some of them are lower flicker, which would be, lower flicker is less stimulating. Some of them have greater level of activity when they're running, versus that's one reason that EMR Tech is one of the older companies that deals in photobiomodulation, which is the science for red light therapy with the different lengths of red light waves. And we got theirs as a recommendation from Laird. He'd had one for a few years before we got ours, and it was it has one of the lowest levels of EMF activity, and it's a very low flicker red light bulbs. I can also tell you, it's been knocked around our house like a lot. It's fallen like fake bulb side down. It's been borrowed by my mother-in-law. I've had a couple clients borrow it, so it's been around, and it's still kicking. Like it's still in very good shape, despite all the heavy use. So it's pretty tough.
Nice.
You have the Inferno from EMR Tech. That's what it's called.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that. I'll have you send me a link to the site. Okay, so you're using the light therapy. You're also doing cold exposure. Did you build a cold plunge tub? Did you buy one?
So we have an Odin ice bath. So it's like a cedar exterior. It's got a steel liner. It's basically like a big freezer where the coils are. It's insulated with the steel container, but the cooling coils are all around the water, so it doesn't use a chiller. It stays cold like a freezer does. So it has to be charged with gas, and that just like a freezer would be before it runs. And we keep it around 40, 45 degrees most days. I've taken it down lower than that, but that seems to be the sweet spot. Like it's cold enough to activate that shock response, maybe get a little shiver going for most people. I don't recommend starting at those temps. So if you're looking to get into deliberate cold exposure, I recommend cold showers are a lot less threatening, especially at the end of a hot shower, or after you've exercised or you've done something to get your body temperature up just a little bit. And starting with short amounts of time, 20, 30 seconds, and then maybe working your 2 or 3 minutes. It really, when you feel your body start to acclimate, as in the water feels less cold, that's a good spot to be able to get to. And it may take a minute or 2 minutes to get there. But yeah, after like jiu-jitsu practices and stuff, a lot of times I'll get home late from those. So sometimes I'll do it afterwards, and it does feel very good. Like you're less sore, you feel less beat up. But I'll be honest, most times that I'm able to do it is before I go to jiu-jitsu, which is really nice because I don't know how early you get up, man, but a lot of days I'm getting up still around 5:30 or so, days earlier. So when I'm going to class at 5:30, like, I've got to gear back up, but I don't want to take stimulants to be able to do so. So around 4:35 before we leave for class, I'll hit a 3-minute cold plunge, and that'll, kind of excite my system a little bit. Yeah, going. I'm in a better mood. I've got greater energy. My body also feels a lot nicer getting onto the mats. After work, I've got less aches and pains already, so I tend to move better that way. So I know a lot of guys use it after, but I wouldn't discount doing it before as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I've done it at night, the process of my body heating back up always made me feel more relaxed. But if I've done it in the middle of the day, like after a run or a roll, I also feel like I'm able to kind of bounce back and sustain that energy a little bit. So it seems to help me also get up just enough, like without taking a mid-afternoon caffeine hit of coffee or something, but also if the process and the sleep hygiene is right, has also been very relaxing. And I'm glad you kind of touched on that, because I've always felt this like same stimulus, but just different response based on what I really needed or what kind of followed the event.
Exactly. It's very funny. It works like that. It's like what you need, you get. Whether it's first thing in the morning, yeah, evening. It's like a slightly different response. Because my fear was, okay, late at night we'll be wired and up for like 2 hours, 3 hours later. Not really the case. My favorite time to do sauna actually is in the evening after the kids are asleep. That's kind of our downtime. It's one of the reasons I want to do that was because it gets so much blood flow to your brain, Ryan, and it sparks some really great conversation. So I know there's actually a podcast where they do it like one-on-one in a sauna. They can kind of get that same kind of environment where it inspires creativity and just gets you in the mind. So we like that. And then either I go into a cold shower or I jump in the ice bath for like a minute or two afterwards. It feels phenomenal going from the heat to the cold, man.
And did you get an infrared sauna? Is that what you guys have?
Yeah, we have a clear light. So it's in the Sanctuary Y. It's like a 4-person sauna. We went a little bigger because we were by clients to use it. We probably would have been okay with a 2 or 3 person, but the 4-person is nice because you can have like 3 bigger people in there comfortably if you wanted to. The bench is split, so instead of being here, they could be like facing off in the sauna. Plenty of space if it's just like you and your wife or something like that. But Clear Light has been in the game, and it's not the hottest sauna. So just to be clear, a lot of people are really into like the steam saunas, are real popular right now, and they're real big on temperature, 190, 100 degrees, etc., to be able to activate the right response. And the infrared saunas will kick your ass at a little bit lower temperature, because instead of just heating the area of the sauna, the box, so to speak, it's heating your body and your tissues. Like you're getting zapped with the infrared light waves. So 150 in that sauna is fucking cooking, man. Like it's hard to endure that for 20 minutes.
Wow.
Usually we'll cruise around 130 to 140 is usually enough for a 20, 30-minute session. And we're kind of getting back into using that on a regular, because summer, man, the days are longer. The night comes like that, and it's like 9:30. Like, we want a sauna tonight, because then we got a shower afterwards. So as the days get shorter, that'll be part of our routine more in the evening. Dude, it's some hella good done, man.
Awesome. So about 10 to 15 minutes of cold exposure a week. So you're hitting, what, 2-3 minutes every day, more or less.
Yeah.
You got your red light, which is that a daily thing?
The red light is kind of just when I think to do it. Right now, I've got it in our bedroom, like right by my bedside table. There's in like the recovery center, our basement. We kind of about last year we renovated the basement. It needed to be gutted, which we did like a full gut job on it. But we rebuilt like a spot. We got a whole side of the basement that's just our cold plunge area to change and stuff. And then the other one's like kind of a lounge area. It's got a couch down there and everything. All the products that we like to believe in and recommend to clients, like electrolytes, are down there. Strong coffee's down there. So we have. But yeah, that's so. What were you? I got off track there. You were asking me about.
Oh, I'm just trying to get a peek into like your weekly schedule with all this stuff. Which was, the red light when you think about it.
Yeah.
10, 12 minutes, 15 minutes a week of cold plunge. And then the sauna, it sounds like in the summer less, but on most weeks, probably 3 to 4 exposures.
Yeah, 3 usually at best these days. Like, I've been more of a maniac about the saunas, where I was doing a week, which is really good, man. The numbers on that don't lie about your lower risk of mortality and cardiovascular disease. I mean, it drops drastically, like 40% or something like that for 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, there are crazy numbers on it, Ryan. So And then, yeah, the cold stuff, I was doing that like every day. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like a first thing in the morning type of activity for me. And then my relationship with it started to become, it felt like it was a chore. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is for me to better my life. It was like an obligation or something to check off the list.
Right.
And started doing it on a more infrequent basis. I felt like from a controlling inflammation standpoint, it actually works better like that because it's more potent. Also, the dopamine hit when you're doing it every day, it just feels like it's a little bit less significant compared to when you're doing it 3 or 4 times a week. You really notice a difference when you get out of that thing after 20,
Mm-hmm.
30. You're on that dopamine high for like 5, 6 hours. So it's kind of cool.
I love this, man. It's like just so simple. I mean, not everybody's going to have access to all of this stuff, but for somebody starting out, what would be, if you had to just pick one or two things, like what would be the things that you feel like have made the biggest impact for you? And I know this is kind of an N of one, but
Oh man,
where's your head at with that?
we haven't even talked about grounding yet, bro. Do
Oh,
you still wear the Whoop?
no.
Okay. So what I noticed, talking about free stuff that everybody can implement. Like most people have a shower. Cold showers would be a great exposure to cold. It's a lot less threatening, and you're already in it anyway. I
Mm-hmm.
saw it was like neck engineering finest, man. Somebody took a colander full of ice and they strapped it to the shower head. So the water coming through the ice cubes was even colder than usual. So in the summertime, when the tap water only gets so cold, that might
Mm-hmm.
be a really good way to get some cold ass water in the shower. In the wintertime, ours comes out of the tap. If you let it run, it's probably in the 40s, and
Yeah.
through the sitting on the pipes. So that'd be a damn cold shower. Um, as far as like the red light stuff, I mean, just something as simple as seeing morning sun and evening sun would you see the same spectrum of infrared light, near, far, and mid infrared light waves when the sun is at that point in the day. So that's why it's so great for your circadian biology because that's what we're meant to see is the beginning and the close out of the day should spark all our hormones to produce how they should, and everything
Mm-hmm.
falls and then the grounding thing. I've tracked it on my wearable. If you want to get really geeky with it, 30 to 60 minutes of ground contact with no shoes on, or you're lying on the ground on a towel, or you're touching a tree. Like those are all ways you can ground your body, and you're literally changing the alkalinity in your blood with the polarity and magnetism of the earth. So it's just something simple that we shouldn't have to think to do deliberately, but you kind of have to go out of your way to do it these days. But I've tracked my HRV, and it is 20% or more higher when I ground that day, even for a half an hour. It's always like that. I tracked it for like 2 weeks straight.
Uh,
Yeah,
I would not expect. I would not expect that.
it makes a bigger difference than the sauna for my recovery score. The ice bath, according to Whoop, and again, it's based on individual responses. I get a negative recovery score for the ice bath, like 11% negative recovery, and for the sauna,
Hmm.
I get a 5 or 6% positive. Uh, breath work, like Wim Hof breath work, I'll usually get like 2 or 3% positive. Grounding will be like 10% positive or higher. So it makes the
How are
difference.
you training outside? Are you walking barefoot? Like how are you doing this?
Mostly when I'm walking around with the kids in the backyard when we're playing, I just make an effort to kick my sandals off when we're out there, pushing them on the swing. If my wife does most of the watering for her garden and stuff because she likes to have that outdoor time and care for her garden and kind of reconnect. She'll have her shoes off while she does that. If I ever help, I'll have my shoes off. Um, when we're doing like chores for the animals and stuff, I kind of have to keep on like muck boots or something because there's a lot of bird shit out there from the chickens, and I don't step in that and contract a parasite or something. But
Mm-hmm.
anytime that pants and I'm outside, I just try to be mindful and kick my shoes off a little bit. And I'll be honest too, I've had a couple clients that are just in a different headspace, and they're more accepting about differences in the reality or other perspectives. And we've like literally put our hands on this giant sycamore tree that's in my front yard. It's like over 250 years old, man. It's just a giant gnarly tree that's got this big trunk, and you can feel the energy coming right off the bark. So that's another way you can do some grounding and stuff. But our gym is like an open air gym for most of the year. And late in the fall and the winter, we have to close our garage door, which sucks. But most of the time, we do indoor and outdoor training. So it's either in the driveway or in our part of our front yard there. And we try to get people outside. So they know when they come up the driveway, we're going to do various things, but we're probably going to be doing carries and sleds at some point during the workout, and it's definitely going to be outside. I've got a pull-up bar in my driveway, so we'll use that for chin-ups or hanging leg raises, things like that. But I think people don't know that. Not everybody knows that is an intentional way to get them outside. But I know that some people, I clue them in on it, like, hey, this is by design. And some people maybe don't care as much about it yet, but doesn't mean that they won't in the future.
Yeah, we have an extra rig at the gym. We did some upgrades on stuff, and I like big part of it just wants to put it outside. Just bolt it to the concrete just to get outside. Because I'm always trapped indoors, and it's fine. We've got a beautiful gym. I love it, but it's just something about being outside and just doing athletic things.
Yeah. And, learn to persevere in the heat, man. It's been in the high 90s here. I'm sure it's hot as you are too.
Yeah.
I haven't had one cancellation because of the heat. I haven't had anybody feel dizzy, faint, anything like that. Everybody's been training in our garage gym like a boss. We actually gave out the sparkling element yesterday. Everybody that came got a free one. So we're an element partner here. So we try to preach we're the salt dealers locally in the area of county, we call it. So it makes a tremendous difference in the fatigue level you experience during a workout, and the resistance to the fatigue is just undeniable when you have a full spectrum of electrolytes, dude. So we're big on that, and all we have is we have some barn fans in the gym that just blow a cross breeze, and it's so much more tolerable to train in the heat that way.
Yeah. Man, we've really come full circle. It's remember we were running around probably in our early 20s, just slinging weights, getting after it. I mean, you were still recovering in some respects, and now it's like, how can we optimize longevity, health, pain, recovery? It's interesting to see our evolution here.
Yeah, man, the long game has been on my radar for a while now, and it's part of like feeling like an 80-year-old at 20. It's just been a different perspective that I've become accustomed to. So I can't believe how with all the work it's taken, I'm really floored that I can feel this good at 38. But I was, my period of 30 was rough, bro. So grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, I say to my wife all the time, I want to feel as long. Not that I resent getting old, because there's certainly an appreciation and just the wisdom and insight that come with it. Not that I'm quite there yet, because I still like to consider myself young, but I want to feel as young as I can for as long as I can.
Yeah.
So, man, this was a super interesting conversation. I appreciate you sharing all your personal anecdotes about how you're using the technologies and non-technologies, honestly, to optimize health. So, if somebody wants to, I know you're not much on the socials, but if they want to find out more about you or BLOC, like where should I direct them?
I'll give you some links where they could pay for online coaching. Not on my Instagram, but my bar link. They could do a little bit of reading there or reach me through there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, I'll also give you my work email. So you could, if you want to attach that to your podcast, people could hit me up here.
Yeah, drop that in the show notes. Shouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we're also on Google So if you look up, strength training in Kentucky, we're one of the highest rated on Google right now, just because people are kind enough to leave us a lot of 5-star reviews, a lot of positive feedback about what we do here.
It's awesome, man. Well, Kris, I appreciate your time. Just hang on the line so we can finish uploading, and then I'll get this uploaded probably next week. So
Sweet.
Appreciate your time, brother.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate and review us with 5 stars only. Then subscribe so you can get all the latest updates.